Welcome to Speakernomics, the official podcast of the National Speakers Association. I'm Kenneth Kinney, but friends call me Shark. And like you, I'm a professional speaker and I love listening to Speakernomics. Speakernomics is the professional speaker show that will help you thrive and grow speaking business so you too can change the world, one keynote session, workshop, and speech at a time. And on this episode, we welcome Jamie Nolan. And who is Jamie Nolan? Well, she's the one herding all these cats. That's us speakers and members of the community known as the National Speakers Association, where she works as a president and CEO. She's so powerful in the speaking world that she can even bench press over 200 pounds with just her two index fingers. Jamie, welcome to Speakernomics. How are you today?
I'm fantastic.
I had to have that part at the end. Yeah, now to all my speaking friends, what does the professional in being a professional speaker mean to you? If you're part of the NSA, then you know how important the core values are that we should all aspire to uphold, and not just as representatives of NSA, but as true professional speakers that meeting professionals love to work with again and again. But navigating truth and integrity in the speaking world comes at an ethical price, and it's one that you better make sure you can afford. And before we jump in, make sure to go to Speakernomics.com. That's where you can find the tips, insights, and knowledge to help you become a better speaker, build a better business, and get paid to speak. Jamie, let's dive in. So when I first started pulling this episode together, and we'll have some spots in here, I wanted to talk about professionalism. And then about the time that I started recording with others, the announcement came out with the speakers at Influence and you doing a session about ethics on behind the mic and off. So in your opinion, and you've seen a lot of examples, good and bad, I'm sure, but what does being a professional mean to you as a professional speaker and how we should represent the speaking community to make it better?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a loaded question, isn't it?
It's all good. Being a professional speaker, a true professional from my perspective, is somebody that operates with high integrity and has good ethics. And the reason that we wanted to do this session is because it is an important part of what we guide our members through is ethics, but it's not spoken of enough, point blank, right? I think there's a lot of assumption that people know what good ethics is, but that's not always true. And so, somebody who strives to operate with high integrity and good ethics is, to me, a true professional.
So talk then a little bit about, some of the things that we need to do as a business. I'm going to kind of rely on something that a title of a great book, Seth Godin says, all marketers are liars. But you think about some of the ways that we need to promote ourselves, from the inflated, bestseller comment, those kind of things. You still have to promote yourself in order to get the word out about you. But there's that line that draws over to where you don't become that liar. So when you think about self-promotion and how we really back up a lot of the claims we make, what's your advice on some good ways to do that?
So that particular topic is always a hot button, right? I would consider it a gray area. When you talk about, I'm an Amazon bestselling author, I'm a New York Times bestselling author, I think you just have to do a gut check of, are you really truly a bestselling author, or were you successful in manipulating the system with algorithms to get your name up there? Were you up there consistently for multiple weeks, or were you up there in one category, very niche in your field for 3 days, and now you're down to 2,000? And so in that particular example, I think it really matters what you do, what your industry is, how you're marketing it, maybe being the best speaker in your particular niche, and being an Amazon bestseller carries a lot of weight in that field. But maybe to the person on the street, know what you do, that Amazon bestseller title isn't the same. So there's some ethical gray areas, and I think it's just doing a gut check on, are you being transparent or are you being authentic in that claim that you're making in your marketing materials?
So why do you think NSA in particular maintains these core values that you want us to live with integrity? And how does that help, in your opinion, distance NSA? And I ask this mainly because I didn't join NSA until a few years ago. I had been out in the wilderness of the speaking world for a long time. But one of the things that really appealed to me was what I learned from the write-up of the core values, and finding at least a community, because you can find speaker communities, small and big, elsewhere. But something about the ethical principles that it reminded me I needed to live by was important. So why do you find that NSA, at least in your experience, has implemented that to be such a core part of distinguishing ourselves as an association away from other groups that speak?
Yeah. So our core values, we have 5 core values, as you know. They're honorable innovation, elevating excellence, intentional language, uplifting humanity, and abundant generosity. And I would say at least 4 of those 5 are both for the association, but also for speakers. Honorable innovation is, a lot of speakers take a lot of information that they've learned from different people over the years and education that they've gotten and their own firsthand experience. And so then they create their IP, but are they giving credit where credit is due to anything that is bringing in, right? So you want to honor the past and also look to the future. Intentional language, being super intentional about the words that you're using on the platform in conversations with people, making sure that, when you're a speaker, you're on the platform, a lot more people know you than you know them. And they hang on to the words that you say. And you say one word in jest or as a joke, they're going to remember that. And so be very intentional about the language that you use. Uplifting humanity, I would say 99.9% of speakers do what they do to uplift humanity. They want to help change lives. And so keeping that at the forefront in everything we do, uplifting humanity, is very important. And the same thing with elevating excellence. Obviously, everybody is out doing what they're doing to make a world a better place. And kind of like intentional language, even when you're not on the stage, are you elevating excellence? Are you elevating excellence on your social media platforms, in your conversations with meeting planners? When you're talking about maybe a disgruntled attendee, are you using that intentional language and uplifting humanity? And then abundant generosity is really, it's an NSA core value that comes out of the spirit of habit. But I think, what I love about the NSA community is that abundant generosity that they all have with each other, and that all of our members support one another to get better at what they do. You can always get better. You never want to stop learning. Even the best and brightest speakers out there can never stop learning. And so to me, that's why NSA is so special, because anybody who's doing this as a profession want these core values, they subscribe to these core values, and they know these core values will help them excel in their career.
What do you hear back from meeting professionals, good, bad, or ugly, about speakers in general? We're not naming names, but do you hear any of that feedback in your role today, and things that we all sort of need to listen to help change?
Yeah. The negative feedback I get or I hear in the grapevine, both in my role here, but also I've been in the association space for my whole career. Meeting planners talk, and they notice when speakers are rude, or if they're dismissive of a meeting planner's request or timeline, if they are demanding and aggressive, if they're difficult to work with. That is, meeting planners don't like that. They're stressed out enough, putting on the big show, and a meeting planner who is sort of making it all about them and not being cooperative, not a meeting planner, sorry, a speaker, making it all about them and not being cooperative. Meeting planners talk, and they will tell other people, don't hire that person. They were really difficult to work with. I've heard stories of meeting planners throwing temper tantrums behind stage, kicking things, throwing microphones. I've heard of meeting planners that don't let I keep saying meeting planners, speakers who don't let their meeting planners know that they made it to the hotel, that they're on site. Maybe they're supposed to speak in a half an hour and they're still sitting in their room because they think they can just walk down and walk on stage. That's not a true collaborative partnership, and it's not helpful to the meeting planners. So to me, those are things that there's some best practices in there, and there's some ethical integrity issues in there.
Have you ever employed anybody on your staff that would only take red M&Ms or green M&Ms? Because that's the story we always hear about speakers. Like the divas only, need the certain color M&Ms. So you just don't put up with that at work, and you don't think about in the business. But for some reason, some people feel like they can get away with it in the speaking world, and I don't get it at all. I know Jeff Savilico and I were talking a little bit about offline some time ago about having a checklist that we both use, a different checklist for each of us, but it was about things to do when we got to meet with meeting planners the day before an event, or when you showed up, making sure you do these certain things and processes. Another one of those that I've always sort of maintained as a list is just that sort of ethical things. And I'm not perfect. I've made plenty of mistakes, but when you sort of apply that lens to it as well as a process, it can help you remind of things that meeting planners they really want to see and hear.
Yes.
Before we jump back to the second half of the show with NSA President and CEO Jamie Nolan, let's take a few moments to hear from some outstanding speakers on what professionalism means to them. Let's hear from Mary Kelly, Mike Bryan, Bill Cates, Alan Berg, Laurie Guest, Simon T. Bailey, and Amanda Gore. Mary, it's so important, especially to show professionalism as a professional speaker. How do you go about doing that to show that you're at a higher level as a speaker?
Well, as you know, my older brother, his wife, me, my husband, my sister, her husband, my younger brother, everybody was military. Part of being a professional military officer in the United States is, number one, you present a certain image when you are out in public. You don't do certain things. You don't behave like an idiot. You don't do things that would embarrass the service you're attached to or the United States. That's kind of a rule. Now, as military officers, we're held to a higher standard. I do believe that's true as professional speakers. We are held to a higher standard. And it's everything from how you behave on an airplane, how you look on that plane. It is how you treat the wait staff. It is how you appear when you check into that hotel. It is your interactions with the AV team. It is making sure that you are early for your sound check. You are early for everything. On time is late. In the military, on time is late. 3 minutes early, that is barely on time. So you show up to give 100%. You don't show up to go, okay, this is good enough. You still rehearse every single time. You still make the contact every single time you show up. Your job is to make the meeting planner's job easier, to connect and deliver for the audience, and to make their event spectacular. And that means you have to live by what you say. If you're a motivational speaker and you're a pain in the neck when you check into the hotel, everybody's going to know. Every time a meeting planner asks me, how's the hotel room? I say, it's absolutely fantastic. I don't care if I slept in a hallway the night before. I'm going to say everything is absolutely fantastic. Now, partly because in the Navy, we have this thing called hot racking, because we don't have enough beds on Navy ships for all the people. So sometimes the bed that you are going to go take a nap in, and a nap could be 4 to 6 hours or whatever your nighttime shift is, but it could still be warm from the warm body that just came out of it, because sometimes we share that if you think we're changing sheets in between, nobody's got time for that. So it's a little gross. So every time I get to go into a hotel room, and I don't care if it's the Ritz-Carlton or a Motel 6, and there are clean sheets in there, I get giddy every time. I'm like, woohoo, this is awesome. It's just a matter of relativity and perspective. But we also have to remember, as professional speakers, we are being watched all the time. And we are being judged every second. If you are not inside your house, you are being judged.
Mike, how do you go about exhibiting being professional, acting as a professional speaker?
Okay, I spent the lion's share of my business career, as a CEO of one of the biggest advertising agencies in the Intermountain West. And in that position, a lot of people thought, oh, he's going to be horrible to work with. And I'm telling you right now, I believe in authenticity at a level that I don't think very many people that were in that position do. I can't stand someone that's fake with me, and I can smell it the second it starts to odor. And so when someone contacts me, or I contact them, and they're thinking about having me come to their conference, listen, I get that they're under an incredible amount of pressure for me not to fail for their good. And so what I try to do is I make sure I am in touch with them at every level they would like to be in touch with me. I ask them, do you want a weekly meeting? Do you want to contact me through texting? Is there anything you would want me to get you to make your life easier? I'm always trying to make them feel like I was their most favorite person to work with. Not so much even as a speaker, but just the working relationship that we had. That they remember me because I deliver on the stage, but he was humble and nice and pleasant and in it for me. He was in it for me to be successful. You know, one thing that I do that is my signature with everybody I work with, I build these bottles, right? I give them laser etched. When I have somebody hire me, I take their name in and I custom laser one of these Owala bottles for them. And underneath of it, because, you know, in a marketing thing, and I know you know this, when you market yourself, like if I gave someone this bottle, they're going to leave it on the plane. It's got my logo on it. There's no value. In fact, it went down in value. But when I have their name big across it, and down below it, I have this sentence. Why, yes, comma, I am friends with Mike Bryan. Why aren't you? That is all it says, and it's in tiny writing. It's like in 10-point font. You can't see it unless you stop and hold it. I have had these people, I've had other meeting planners contact me and say, hey, we're excited to have you come and talk. I've been talking to the Utah CPAE Association in December. They said, can my assistant get the bottle this time? Are you kidding me? They freaked out because I made it about them. I never made anything about me. That's what I think is the difference between a real professional speaker that is concerned about helping the people they're serving, is that it's never about you. It's always about them.
Bill, how should speakers reflect professionalism when they become or act as professional speakers?
Well, clearly there are a lot of things one can do in terms of doing what you say you're going to do, show up on time, all that sort of stuff. But I have to say, the biggest thing for me is being authentic. Now, that's kind of an overused word these days. But what I mean by that is really, truly just being who you are and not putting on our airs and not trying to be the superstar. When I get on stage, I am pretty much just the same person that I am off the stage. I'm not yelling. I'm not running around crazy. That's hard to watch for our audience members. When people move too much or they talk too loud, one of the things I learned early on is that and I know this is it sounds a little off topic, but it isn't. You've got to let the microphone do the job for you. You can't try to reach the back of the room with your voice as if you didn't have a microphone, because then you're starting to yell, and that's hard to listen to. And so the way I see professionalism is just being who I am, the natural person that I am. I'm having fun on stage, just being who I am. Maybe just a little tad more energy because I'm on stage. But to me, that's people seem to like that. They seem to appreciate that. And I think that's part of being a professional.
Alan, you're a professional speaker. To you, what does professionalism mean as far as being a professional speaker?
It means being the easiest person to work with when it comes to whoever's putting on that event. And it means that the best speech that I've ever given is the next one. That I'm always trying to be better than the last time. And whether the audience is seeing me for the first time or the 10th time, that they're going to get value from that. But I've had many conferences say to me, you know, Alan, once we come to terms on whatever it is that you're speaking, we don't have to worry about you anymore. We know you're going to be ready. I have 3 adapters for my equipment to plug in, and I'm lending adapters to other people. I have a clicker and a backup clicker. It means, again, being the easiest person that they're going to work with, and then helping out whatever. I'll say to them, listen, if somebody can't make it, don't have an empty stage. Let me fill that for you. Is there anything else I can do while I'm there to add value to you and the people? Are there any VIPs that you'd like me to speak to or things like that? And it's trying to add value. And Kenneth, it kind of comes back to, I was on another podcast and somebody said to me, you know, why do you do what you do? And I said, it's easy. It's 2 things. It brings you value and it brings me joy. If it doesn't bring me joy, I'm not going because you're getting cheated. And if it doesn't bring you value, I'm not going because you're getting cheated. So to me, being a professional means working on the craft of speaking. And then once I've accepted that gig, doing everything I can do to make that a success for them, offering to do videos, offering to do social posts or emails or whatever to make that a success, and proactively doing that, not just waiting for them to come back to me and say, hey, could you do this? Can you make us a video? Offering those things, because I want them to know that I'm not going to get off the stage and walk out to the waiting car and leave. I'm going to walk out and go to the audience and be accessible, because accessibility means better for them, also means better for me, but it means better for the conference to see that this speaker is not just somebody on stage as a one-way, right, a dialogue, that we're going to have a conversation now in the hallway, at lunch, whatever it is, and just being whatever value I can be for them.
Laurie, how do you go about distinguishing yourself as a professional person, business person, when thinking about the business of speaking professionally?
Well, I make sure that every promise made is a promise kept. And I feel like meeting professionals really appreciate it when the materials that they need get in their hands early and are put together to make it easy on them. And then my big, huge pet peeve is start on time, end on time. And so when you take the stage, if they didn't start you on time, you need to know, let's say it's an hour keynote, am I still supposed to go an hour and we continue to run behind, or do you want me to stop at the top of the hour regardless of when I start? And it's really important that you know which they expect from you, because as a professional, sometimes our job is to catch them up, to help them get back on the timeline, even if it means cutting things short. I have a brief story in case you want to use it. All right, here we go. One time I was invited to come to Boston to do a 45-minute keynote, and they told me ahead of time it would follow lunch and that there was a hard stop at 2:00, no matter when I started. And the time kept ticking and the time kept ticking, and it got to be 1:45, and I still had not been invited up to the stage yet. So I snuck over to the meeting professional and I whispered to her, just confirming one more time, hard stop at 2:00, no matter when I start. And she said yes. I ended up giving a 9-minute keynote. And when I got ready to leave, one of the attendees said, that's the best speech I've ever heard. So it told me that they didn't really care about the full content of my speech. They apparently only cared about the cliff notes. So that's my big advice is let's do what we say we're going to do. Start, end on time, and make all the deliverables as quick as possible.
Simon, when you think about being a professional speaker, that professional word is obviously about professionalism. You're a Hall of Fame speaker. What does being a professional speaker mean to you, and how you distinguish yourself from others?
Seth Godin has an amazing quote that says, doing what you love is for amateurs, but loving what you do is for professionals. I love the quote. And I think number one, excellence is early. So the ability to not just show up to do a presentation, but being early and connecting with the customer from the very first call to the deep dive to understanding what is it that their audience really needs, and moving from being paid to speak to paid to think. That's a different way of approaching our business, especially now in a world that is full of AI. So how do we come along and truly practice AI, actual intelligence, where the customer knows that we are shifting from here I am to there you are? How do we be a solution to your problem? I think the second thing is this ability to understand customers don't care about our speech. They really don't. And yes, our speech is what we have in our toolkit. That's great. That's very nice, very sweet, and very special. They want to know, do you get our pain? And are you the doctor that is going to come along and really help not just relieve the pain, but also provide us with tangible strategies that we can use and we can point back to you. And it's not the quantity of what we offer, it's the quality of what we offer. So I think for those in our profession, holding ourselves to a higher standard now more than ever before, to say, am I showing up in brokenness, or am I showing up in boldness? And in boldness, we are leading the future. We're helping point to where true north is for that customer.
Amanda, when we think about professionalism, what does it mean to be a professional when thinking about the speaking business and being a professional speaker?
Well, for me, the key factor is integrity and ethics. And my entire 38 years, I've prided myself, and I'm known for my ethics and integrity. When I first came back to America, I got a job from a client that the wonderful Brian Palmer had booked for me 20 years ago the first time, and then I forget how many the second time, and they wanted me back for their 75th anniversary. And, it was a long time between gigs, but I still put it back through Brian because he deserved it. So I think integrity and ethics are critical. I made some notes. The second is that you're approachable and easy to work with, because I'm in awe of the number of meeting planners who tell me about speakers afterwards and how difficult they were to work with. And you know what? We're not celebrities. And even if we were celebrities, what right does that give us as a human to say, well, I only want yellow M&Ms, or I must have this and I must have that? That's just not kind or human or being in your heart. And that does not make you stand out as a professional. And then the third thing I had was to treat the client's business as your own. And that's what I've always done. I feel like I'm sitting beside my client and we're looking at the issue of the event and what they're trying to achieve, and how can I best modify what I'm doing and deliver a message that really ties into their needs. But that requires flexibility and adaptability, which I also think are important. So I think that.
Now, let's jump back and close out the rest of the show with NSA President and CEO Jamie Nolan. So tell us a little bit about what your session is going to be. You're going to be pulling back the curtain and you're going to be pointing at all the speakers in the audience who are divas and mean and not.
No.
But what is it? What's the session going to be about at Influence, and why should people go?
Yeah. I mean, it's about an ethical culture. It's not compliance. We want to help educate members, help them to be curious and think about situations that they're in. Sometimes they may not even realize that they are facing an ethical situation. A lot of times you don't know until you go through it. We will have a panel. It'll be Michelle Villalobos, CSP, Terry Brock, CSP, CPAE, and Lenora Billings-Harris, CSP, CPAE. And we're just going to talk about we're going to start it off with some what we would consider non-negotiables relative to ethics in the speaking world. For example, proper attribution, citing data where you get your facts, that sort of thing. And then we're going to talk a lot of gray area. What are some things that could be an ethical issue, but it's gray? Truth and self-promotion, like we just talked about, is an area. IP and attribution, conduct and community, AI. But, AI is going to bring about a whole new set of questions on integrity and authenticity and ethics. And then just sort of overall self-awareness for members. So this is the beginning of an ongoing conversation. I would like to see this ethics panel be conducted at every Influence, and maybe with a webinar or two throughout the year, because there's always new situations. And we're all in this to get better together. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's going to get everything right, but being educated and being aware of it will help make a difference.
One of my last questions was going to be around AI, and I wanted to particular ask about that. What concerns you the most with all the changes that are going on? Because I think speakers are going to be eager to try a lot of things that AI can do, and then it turns out it's not the authentic you in any way. We see that a lot with books. We're starting to see that a lot more with video capabilities, all kinds of things. It's a little freaky with everything that's coming. But again, we sort of need to maintain those guardrails with doing what's right versus what's capable. And so when you think about it, what are your thoughts around AI and how it will affect a lot of the stuff in the speaking world as it applies to us?
Shark, we could do a whole episode on this topic alone. I've got so many opinions on this topic. I think there's a lot of opportunity and I think there's a lot of risk. The opportunity is endless for our members, especially those members who are established in their career. Where I think there's going to be some ethical challenges is going to be probably mostly for people that are not currently professional speakers or active speakers, and they think they want to get on the stage and they think they can just go into AI and throw in a topic and have the AI spit out their whole presentation, and then they're going to recite it. And it's not going to be their original IP. The AI might be pulling from other members or other professional speakers out there. And I think that that's where we're going to see sort of emerging speakers trip and fail. And so it's really important that you use AI as a tool to enhance what you're already doing, but not use it as the source of everything you're doing.
Jamie, normally I ask people questions from previous guests and ask questions from you to ask a future guest. I'm kind of curious, if you were to ask pretty much any speaker and how they apply ethics, what question would you ask future listeners of this show to think about as it applies with ethics to them?
I think my question would be, what's a personal principle that you won't compromise on, even when nobody's watching?
Amen to that. Well, then let's do a quick recap based on Jamie's executive advice. Number one, being a true professional is someone that operates with high integrity and is a true professional. Number two, remember with your marketing, your words matter. They carry a lot of weight. Number three, we have 5 core values. Make sure to learn every one of them. Go to NSA's webpage right now and find them. And number 4, just adding this in because I got a Spider-Man cup. As Peter Parker's uncle once said, especially when you think about AI, with great power comes great responsibility. Don't think we necessarily need to add that to our core values, but it's a still good movie line. Jamie, I'm looking forward to seeing you at Influence. Any last closing thoughts before we speak ourselves off this stage?
I am so excited to have you at Influence. I hope anybody listening will sign up if you haven't already. It is going to be a phenomenal conference and it will accelerate your business tenfold.
Absolutely. Friends, make sure to join us at Speakernomics.com and let your voice be heard. I'm Kenneth Shark-Kinney, your host of the National Speakers Association's podcast, Speakernomics, and this has been another fantastic episode of the show. Thank you, Jamie, for all of your service to NSA and for lending your voice to the show. And everyone listening, thank you for the privilege of your time. And remember, Speakernomics is a podcast where you'll learn to speak, get paid, repeat.